Hey, what's up YouTube? Haven't made a video, well, in about a week. And while I'm still motivated to make this video, which really I'm not, I'd probably rather be sleeping or something. I don't really feel terribly motivated. But I would like to make a video that I've kind of been putting off for a while. Because I didn't really know how to work this in. Okay? I've been wanting to make a video about something that kind of ties into what I've been talking about, only it's a little bit different. And it's basically this show. I'm going to start off talking about this show from way back in the 90s called KaBlam. Okay? And what it was a very unique kind of Nicktoon. Okay? I didn't really watch it all that much. But in looking back, I think it aired between 96 and 2000. So I guess I would have been 12 or 13 through 16 when it aired. Okay? And like I say, I don't really know too much about it. But what I do know is that there were some little skits on there that were a bit more wholesome than a lot of Nicktoons that continued for way longer. Okay? And one of them was called Life with Loopy. Okay? And that was basically, and I have some show and tell. Life with Loopy. And that was basically a little skit, it was like a segment within KaBlam, which was a 30-minute Nicktoon, so to speak. And I have this doll that I'm calling Loopy, even though she probably looks nothing like the character. But that's what this video is about. I call this one Larry, even though he's just a kidcore doll that used to be a girl with purple eyes, which I made brown. Larry and Loopy, okay? And, of course, I'm not sure that her eyes were brown, but I don't really care. And the way I got this doll was kind of unusual. This is way back around Easter. I wasn't expecting to get this doll. She's basically a Chelsea doll, and she's a special Easter Chelsea, like a limited edition, okay? And she has turquoise hair, and I think they had a pink-haired version. And I call her Loopy because there was a little girl that was somewhat cute on that show, especially if she would have had a more normal type of hair color, But she had turquoise hair in pigtails. And her real name was Lupicia, Lupicia. And she was 7 years old, and she had a 12-year-old brother, Larry. But they called her Loopy. And she was a lot cuter in many ways, and nicer than a certain other Nicktoon girl with blonde hair, also named after an herb. But for some reason that show didn't last long, and it was a different kind of animation called the stop motion, which means that you'll have basically 3D objects that they move in increments against a background. And it's somewhat like a cartoon, only it's more 3D. It's kind of what they had for 3D before there was CGI. So yeah, Larry and Loopy. And, it was a fairly wholesome show. A lot more wholesome than some of the others that I've talked about. And I got this doll because someone on eBay, I don't know how they knew that I looked at this doll, but they offered me a much lower price after Easter, and I just couldn't pass it up. So yeah, I call it a Loopy doll. I call her Loopy, even though she doesn't look exactly like Loopy, but close enough. That's what I want to talk about in this video. So that show was a lot more wholesome. I mean, yes, it did have a few cringy moments. Like they had a fart joke at least once in there that made me a little bit uncomfortable. But for the most part, it truly was, a wholesome show. And, what I want to talk about in this video, I want to call it when characters become sacred cows or idols. And what I mean by a sacred cow is something you're not allowed to criticize. Um, and it just makes me very angry, because when I think about poor Loopy, probably not too many people remember her, and her brother Larry, and he used to be a kidcore girl like this with purple eyes. But, when I think about shows like that, and how if I wanted to say something derogatory, so to speak, about them, there probably wouldn't be anyone coming to their defense because they're so long forgotten. And, even though the show was more wholesome because Loopy was 7 and Larry was 12, you see, that might be another reason why it wasn't well remembered. Perhaps if they'd been 5 years younger or 6 years younger, people would remember who they were. But the fact that Loopy was 7 made it to where the humor had to be somewhat more advanced than that of a lot of shows. There was a limit to the toilet humor. Although, unlike certain other pigtailed characters, she is seen using a toilet at one point. Although I think she's fully clothed, so I guess that doesn't count. But, um, it's just, it makes me so mad because it's like, when something becomes, and what I mean by a sacred cow, you know, when you're not allowed to criticize something, when you're not allowed to speak critically about something that really shouldn't be reverenced, if you know what I mean. Um, it's just when you're willing to throw a real flesh and bone human under the bus in various ways, whether it's being rude to them, even to the point in some cases of calling the police on someone for pornifying a cartoon character that's underage, when we all know the reality. You're not underage unless you are a human being born since 2002, or this day in 2002. So to consider a cartoon character a human is just ridiculous. But now, that being said, I don't condone any type of pornography, so you're not going to find that on this channel. Or at least not anything that hasn't actually been shown on TV, so it can't be pornography. So yeah. When you're to the point where, I mean, you feel the need to protect a fictional character from what a human being might say about them, especially when it isn't all that derogatory, you know what I mean? Something that anyone with two brain cells to rub together, could have concluded on their own and has. It's just ridiculous, to think that little old me, I'm going to destroy the reputation of some fictional character that really is not even as wholesome as a lot that have been long forgotten and probably very few people would remember. So yeah, it's just thought I'd show that, for the video. It's not like I can really share these things with anyone in real life. Um, but yeah, that happened. I want to say it was like late April that I got this Loopy doll. And like I say, I really don't care, if she doesn't look exactly like the Loopy. I mean, because the character actually was a two-dimensional doll. And that's what I mean. I mean, these fictional characters, they're just all the same. They're just someone's idea that they draw, and it changes over time. I mean, it's subject to change. There's a lot of errors, there's a lot of inconsistencies throughout the years. There's a lot of things that are unknown to this day about various cartoon characters. And so, it's just ridiculous, to actually hurt real people, real human beings, with a heartbeat and blood running through their veins, because of fictional characters that someone could draw any which way you can imagine, if you know what I mean. Um, and it just makes me so mad. It's like when people will just say some of the ugliest things. I'm not on DeviantArt anymore. Well, I guess I still have an account, but I don't post anything. Um, but people will just be so ugly to you about a stupid fictional character and just attack you and say, oh, how dare you think this character would do this, that, or the other. I'm not going to be more specific. But, how dare you say this about a fictional character that, we can't even agree from one season to another how many teeth they have, if you know what I mean. Um, so yeah, I mean, at least these characters had an eye color, you know, and it's like, it's just really sad when you have so many of these cartoons, like I was talking about Loud House, where you know more about their excrement and bodily functions than the color of their eyes. That is pretty freaking sad. Um, and so, yeah, I just think it's ridiculous that people will defend such characters to the death. Characters whose eye color really cannot be nailed down, if you know what I mean. It's been depicted as so many different things. And I don't have a problem with that. I feel like people should have artistic liberty. If one person wants to draw this character with blue eyes one day, and another depiction of the character has brown eyes, so be it. I don't really care. Because I feel like, life is just too short to argue about such specific things about characters that don't actually exist in real life. I mean, I only have a finite number of years on this earth, but yet those characters, could be every bit as much the same, say, 100 years from now, if somebody draws them that way or depicts them that way. And, I just really think it's sad to hurt real people over details in the lives of cartoons.